Well, howdy, friends. Brian Flechsig of Mad River Outfitters in the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and we'd like to extend a very warm welcome back. Come on, everybody together. Welcome back to this guy. That's right, Tim Flagler. Well, Tim, it's great to be with you, as always.
Great to be with you, Brian. As always fun.
I've heard stories that we have fun together.
Yeah.
We are here. You might have already seen some footage of Tim and I and a big group of folks. Mark Melnick from the New Fly Fisher.
Yep. We got Marvin Cash from the Articulate Fly podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're here in central Pennsylvania on the legendary Spruce Creek, which, I don't know, a year or so ago, you and I we were traveling to go fishing, and just we started talking about, and you happened to mention Spruce Creek, and I said, oh my gosh, I grew up fishing on Spruce Creek.
Yeah.
I started running trips here in the early 90s, and probably about the time that I kind of stopped coming over here was about the time you started coming here.
Yeah, doing video work, a little bit of guiding for other people, and then it was only just a couple of years ago that my wife Joan and our son Drew started running trips here, hosting trips here of our own, and we're doing 8 trips a year now.
Yeah, right.
Can't stay away from the place.
Well, it's a very special place, and I'm so glad that we were able to make that connection. And you guys made this happen and invited us to come over and spend some time. And it turned out to be kind of an industry gathering and kind of a think tank, which has been really cool. And but anyways, we're here in early November of 2025, and we have some brown trout and some
rainbows.
We've seen some rainbows
spawning
that are on the spawn. And so they are going through the motions. They are dropping some eggs, and there are eggs in the water. And the egg pattern, I gotta say, even though I was dialed in with all my pheasant tail simplicity and all my fancy stuff that I spent so much time, the egg pattern has been producing.
Yeah. It's this time of year. You know, a lot of people are, it's an egg pattern. They kind of equate it with a worm or whatever, and or even a mop fly. But you know, it's a trout food source. They're eating eggs, and they really like to take egg imitations here on Spruce Creek.
Yeah, well, I think it's true. It's true, of course, in our steelhead streams as well.
Sure.
And on my home water, the Mad River, that right now is the time to be fishing egg patterns.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, friends, we, Tim and I, as most of y'all should be, we are not fishing for spawning fish.
No, we're trying not to fish anywhere near reds. You know, we're obviously not stepping on any. We're looking very, very carefully before we even get in the water. And, you know, we're fishing spots that are not spawning spots, and that is really, really very important.
Yes, absolutely, and I think it's a lesson that still a lot of people need to learn.
Yeah.
So, anyways, the egg pattern has been producing here over the past few. Well, you've been here a few days longer than myself, but anyhow, so I sat here the other night after supper, and I watched Tim knock out about 50 egg patterns after supper, and there was a couple of tricks that, of course, Tim Flagler is always going to have tricks. Trust me.
Yeah.
And always a slightly different way, and always a kind of a unique way of doing something. So I talked him into tying an egg pattern, although we've done it a bunch of times, but I think you're going to learn something here. So Tim, show me, not to mention these are the smallest egg patterns.
They're very small, and you know, a lot of trout eggs, they're not salmon. And for instance, brown trout eggs are very often really, really small, yellow, often yellow in color. And so we're going to tie a kind of a yellow one here with a little blood dot on it, if you will. But some pinks have also been working really well, pink colors with darker red dot. But so here goes. And this is nothing new, folks. And there are many, many different ways to do this. But I start off with plunger-style hackle pliers. I always have a bunch on hand, as many of you know. And I'll gut them. And by that, I mean I just take the guts out of them. Yes, I've ruined the plunger-style hackle pliers. I won't do it here, but I usually snip off this end piece, so you end up with something that looks like this, just a hollow tube.
In front of the vise, Tim?
Yeah.
It looks like a nozzle.
A nozzle. And you can use a ballpoint pen. You can use, a plastic tube, anything that's like this. These just happen to be the right size, really. You hollow them out. Hollow them out a little bit more for larger eggs. Leave it nice and small for smaller ones. But what I use is they're one of these. It's almost like a loop of monofilament. They're dental picks. You get a whole bunch of them for next to nothing. And so what I'll do is take the dental pick, slide it down in there, have a loop sticking out of the top like that. And what I have here is a couple of strands, 2 yellow and 1 orange. This is McFly foam. And I really like to get the McFlylon clown package. So you get a whole bunch of different colors in one package. You can make all these different color combinations, really cost-effective way to do it. Anyway, it gets a little tricky. You just slip the end into the loop, pull down, and you want this to be tight, okay? That you don't really want to be able to pull it through real easily. And so what I do is I just take a popsicle stick, wrap it a few times to get a purchase on that monofilament. So what you end up with is you pull the material down through the plunger-style hackle pliers and leave just a little nubbin. It's much smaller than you think it should be at the top. And this will allow you to make, 20, 30 different eggs, real easy. For a hook, I'm using a Fulling Mill 5067. It's kind of a scud, a merger. They call it a check nymph hook, but nice curve, natural curve to it. And I'm using some Semperfly. This is classic waxed 6/0, very, very strong, thin thread. You need some strength here because we're going to tighten down pretty hard on this McFly foam to compress it.
What size hook are you using?
This is an 18.
Wow.
But it's big for an 18.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a large gap. It's nice, especially when you're doing an egg, that it covers up a lot of that gap, and you still want it to stay open. So short shank, but kind of a big gap for the hook. And it's so easy. You just take that little nubbin, kind of lay it crosswise on the hook, and I do 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I do 5 around just the shank. And then you pull out just a little bit. You often have to brace the hook. And then give a little snip right there. And magically, with a little fluffing, we'll show you in the end after I do a whip finish. Always give my bobbin a counterclockwise spin before I whip finish.
You do that incessantly.
Yeah, just so it doesn't knot up and cause the thread to break when you pull it through like that. But I'm without any real trimming or anything like that, just a little fluffing, I end up with this beautiful little sphere. It's not perfect on the bottom, with a blood dot, and it's good enough, good to go.
Wow.
Yeah, and it means that you can tie a whole bunch of them in fairly short order.
This is pretty slick.
Yeah,
That's a cool trick. And you're right. You probably could use take a ballpoint pen and just chop it off right here. But I think one of the tricks to this is having it cinched it down there, and so that it's really tight.
Exactly. And the tighter you can get it, it's kind of like a tugging match. You have to pull that material. I'll do another one real quick. You have to pull that material through the tube. And so you want it to be loose enough to pull through, but at the same time, you want enough material in there so it really compresses and makes for a nice solid egg. But it is just that simple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pull out here, snip it off nice and short. And, you know, counterclockwise spin, and it's, what, 20-second egg tops? And you can just crank them out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Very guide style fly, you know?
Yeah. You know, a couple of things. I mentioned this earlier, the little micro whip finisher.
Yep.
I just think it's so cute. I have been using it on smaller flies, but this one, have you seen this?
Yeah. I use, it's like a seam ripper.
Yeah, it is. It's a seam ripper, but as soon as I saw this, I thought, man, they stole that off Tim Flagler.
Yeah.
Because you sharpen the back end of your
Mattarelli
whip finisher. And that's what you cut with. So that's what inspired me. And I've been using this a lot. It does allow me to get, I think it allows me to get in even closer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it's not a necessity tool, but I use it a lot on a lot of different flies now. So that's called the Easy Cutter, and then the micro whip finisher.
The micro whip finisher.
Try it real quick.
Yeah, can I do one more? Oops.
Yeah.
Let me do one more just so I have something to whip finish, right?
And so we have eggs to fish with later.
Yeah.
So I wasn't, we were kind of heavy into conversation the other night, and you were just knocking these out, and I didn't actually sit and watch you like I just did. And that is just so simple. But now I know how you knocked out like 50 in 20 minutes.
Yeah, once you get going on these things and you kind of get that rhythm, you know, I feel like Rain Man sometimes when I'm counting the wraps and everything, but it really helps me to keep in that
Try the small whip finish.
Oh, yeah. Reverse.
I just want to see what you think.
Yeah. It helps me to keep in that rhythm, and wow, that is teeny.
Isn't it?
That's a whole different dynamic. That works pretty cool. Say, flip it around.
Yeah. But for little.
Oh, here, let's try your cutter.
Size 18 and 20 flies, though.
Yeah.
I have found it useful.
Bingo. Perfect. Yeah, a little blood dot on top. Nice, tight little egg. They last a while. They won't last forever, but, you know, what 20 seconds to tie it? Very little materials. Great fly.
No fly lasts forever.
All right.
Nothing lasts forever. Well, there you have it, friends. A quick egg fix in that plunger-style hackle pliers. You can, of course, get those at Matter of Outfitters. And the good news is they're cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they don't cost much at all. And I was never a big fan of those. And once again, you've shown me a lot over the years as far as tying goes. And I started using them a lot, and I'm using them for all my soft hackles in particular, and a variety of other things. And I've fallen back in love with that plunger style hackle.
Yeah, I use them.
But that's a great use. And a great way to do that, and I think the secret is in the compression there.
Yeah, right down at that neck.
Yep. Well, anyways, there you have it, friends. A micro egg pattern that Tim and I and others have been using here on Spruce Creek in central Pennsylvania. And as always, we appreciate you being here. You can check out Tim. If you're not familiar, it's Tightlinevideo.com. You'll also see him on the Orvis
Learning Center.
Orvis Learning Center and tie-offs and
Mid-Current, another one.
Yep. But check out Tightline Video and go subscribe to him as well. And be sure to subscribe to Matter of Outfitters so you don't miss an episode. So thanks as always, Tim. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Brian.
Appreciate everything you do for us. And I always enjoy spending time with you. So again, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the like button. That really helps us out. Hop on over to our website, register for our monthly newsletter, and stay tuned because you never know when Tim Flagler might show up.